Committee, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Abdul Razak Ahmad, Dr. Mazli Malik, Mr. Ahmad Al-Muhammadi, and Dr. Arya Sandiruda. Our special guest, the President of AYLF Indonesia, Mr. Ade Nuansa Wibisono, representative from AYLF Singapore Chapter, Mr. Khairuddin Abdul Hamid, members of organisation, Al-Aqsa Foundation, Mizan Organisation, and Pertubuhan Ikram Malaysia, and also the members from university student societies. All the participants that have chosen to be here instead of taking extra hours of rest after a tiring 5 working days. Thank you for your time and effort in attending our talk today. Roundtable discussion, Youth Against Terrorism. Our time and effort here signify our full commitment to go against terrorism in any kind of form, particularly in ASEAN countries as well as in the international level. No country is immune from terrorism. Terrorism has been a serious threat to many countries, affecting the peace and safety of the society at large. At the regional level, strong relationship and network within ASEAN countries are important in countering the ongoing issue of terrorism, especially among youth. From that, ASEAN Youth Leadership Forum, Malaysian Chapter, and Bait Al-Amanah are taking the initiative to co-organize this roundtable discussion, Youth Against Terrorism, to create awareness among youth on this issue, to explain the roles that can be actively played by them in supporting the authorities as well as the non-profit organisation to counter the terrorist threat. Before we move on, I would like to invite the President of ASEAN Youth Leadership Forum Malaysian Chapter, Dr. Nur Aisyah Zainuddin, to give her opening remarks for our session today. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fatih Syarimi, for the very warm opening remark. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. Very happy to see all of you today. To our distinguished guest, advisor of ASEAN Youth Leader Forum, Mr. Umar Salim, came from Indonesia. Our representative from AYLF Singapore, Mr. Khairuddin Abdul Hamid. Our honorable speakers, Dr. Abdul Razak, Dr. Mazli, Dr. Arya, Mr. Ahmad, and our co-organizer, Bait Al-Amanah. We are very delighted to have all of you here to participate and share our discussion on youth against terrorism. I would like to congratulate the event managers, Mrs. Nik Fatima and also Mrs. Nik Atika Faimin, with their team for their effort in making sure this event will be a memorable event for all of us. Worldwide societies are shaken by terrorist attacks, and recently, the more than 4 months old siege of Marawi in the southern Philippines makes a tangible case that violent extremism and regional terrorism remain real and threatening issues. The perpetrators of those atrocities were young people, which is a common feature of many terrorists. Indeed, investigation and research have shown that terrorists and violent extremist groups predominantly recruit individuals from the age group between 15 and 30 years old. We cannot ignore the fact that we are facing the challenging problems that are affecting our youth. This year marks the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is ASEAN's 50 years of anniversary. With the theme of partnering for change, engaging the world, we should embrace our diversity in different countries, nationalities, races and regions in fostering the effort to combat terrorism and extremism among our youth. This is to secure peace, stability and economic developments for Southeast Asia's more than 500 million diverse people. The heterogeneous region has a very strategic position, particularly given the importance of sea routes traversing the Straits of Malacca and the South China Seas. Similarly, the spacious land boundaries between insular and peninsular South Asia make it vulnerable to regional terrorism. Easy access to porous borders makes it easier for terrorists to launder their identities while also serving as operational space to plan, train for, and execute their attacks. our countries have been, Southeast Asia area has been the home of indigenous Islamic militants group for decades. Today, the mix of socio-economic marginalization, political corruption, loosening political controls, and ignorance toward the resurgence of militant groups has created a time bomb for the region. Despite large intelligence and internal security apparatus in the region, there seems to be much comprehension about the different capabilities of the 10 nation-states in the region, and the lack of technical or analytical capabilities to address regional security issues. Fortunately, global awareness of the need for preventive action has been established. Many youth movements and NGOs has mobilized their efforts in giving awareness and campaign against terrorism. We should not left behind. We acknowledge that our youth are vulnerable and they need help and guidance. War against terrorism is beyond physical, socio-economical and political, but also ideological. We should share our knowledge and thoughts to deeper understanding the root cause of this problem. Together, through analysis and assessment, we might find the best formula to combat the acts of terrorism and all its instruments. This cause can be neutralized using the same dosage of counter strategies in the field of politics, ideology and education. Any war on terrorism must be comprehensive in its approach. Cooperation is especially important in Islamic State-inspired threats. When we think of prevention and youth, the first reaction is to look for ways to make our young people less vulnerable to radical and extremism, content, or even to protect them against the destructive narrative of extremism, whether they are religious or political inspiration. We have to maximize social media to propagate the message of peace and love. We should encourage our youth to be more analytical in receiving information. We also need to continue to educate them the importance of peace and national building. Secondly, I believe it is necessary to counter extremism message, discredit the messengers and the legitimacy of their narrative. Then we have to ensure that the message gets across them. We should also think of offering alternative for them, inspire and positive message that can attract them for the good cause. We should look for the good cause young people can commit to in a positive way. Being radical is not a bad thing as such for youngsters. As long as we serve a better world, we can try to de-radicalize young people, but it's possibly even better to re-radicalize them so as to channel their energy into positive causes. In that way, youngsters are not part of the problem but of the solution. Indeed, if these alternative messages should be credible, they probably have to come from other youngsters, from peers, not from adults. We have to be clear, we are not against them, but we are against those ideologies that can ruin their life and future. We are their friends, place for them to seek help. We have to ensure our youth can have credible future in the world. Taking a policy narration, we as ASEAN youth leaders must forward effort together, realizing the conjoined threats of terrorism can only be eradicated through strong integrity. Only together, in solidarity, we can resist violent extremism and terrorism. I hope all of us can enjoy our discussion today and can bring forward our message of the discussion to respective organizations, and also to propagate the message through social media and also to our followers, and hopefully the message against terrorism can be disseminated to all of our youth. As for now, I will return the floor to our MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Aisha, for the insightful opening remarks. As we are going to start our roundtable discussion soon, I invite our speakers to come forward and be seated at the front table. Please welcome. As a small note, our session today is a semi-formal, and so all the participants could have some refreshment, free flow refreshment, while joining the discussion. Without further ado, I pass the floor to our moderator of the day, Dr. Raudah Yunus, to introduce our distinguished speakers and move on and proceed with the roundtable discussion.
So as our MC stages now, we say this is, let's not make it too formal, let's make it rather informal. So feel free to move around to get some food or drinks, you know. And then, so we will, as you can see, we have the key speakers today. We actually have 4. So we're waiting for Mr. Ahmad, and I will be moderating the session. I will not be introducing too much our speakers because I believe each participant has got their own file and we have provided you with the details. However, just to give a very brief introduction, our first speaker is Dr. Masri. I'm not sure if I have introduced him, but I'm quite sure probably some of you are already familiar with him. Dr. Masri is now an assistant professor at the National Islamic University of Malaysia, and he has a PhD from Durham University. He specializes in political science, and besides his academic work, he is also quite experienced in humanitarian and journalism in both Southeast Asia and Middle East. So without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Masri to share his input, and the topic of his talk will be what is terrorism movement and how did it start? Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everybody. Thank you, Miss Chairperson, and organizer, and dear panelists, respected panelists, guests, brothers and sisters. So, if I'm not mistaken, the topic that has been given to me is about the root, the historical root of terrorism and how did it start. The topic itself is very problematic. It depends on how you define terrorism and who you consider as the terrorist. Because for some people, when they put down the list of terrorist organizations that they have, it might not be the same as the others. For example, if you ask the Egyptian government to come up with the list of terrorists, you found Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Hizbul Wasat, and other groups were supposed to be pro-democracy, political Islamic parties, which are considered as part of democratic actor in other countries, are considered as terrorists in their list. You go to CIA list, must not be the same like what we have in our country. You go to Turkey, Gulen organization is considered as terrorist, whereas you go to the United States, Gulen is considered part of their partner. I mean, so it is very problematic. This issue itself is very problematic. And we're going to talk about this problem is also very problematic. I would prefer young, Asian youth, Muslim youth to talk about other, promising topics rather than terrorism. We talk about terrorism, it's not a sexy topic anyway. It doesn't bring any hope, and it won't go anywhere. Terrorism is a good topic for certain people to make a lot of money. It's an industry. Media gaining a lot of money out of this topic, terrorism. They spread lies, they create lies, but for them it's okay because, terrorism itself is bad. So you create lies on bad things, it turns good, which itself is very problematic. Movie makers, they're making a lot of money. Social media platform, when they get all those views or whatever, they can advertise, they can get all those algorithm things for marketing, and it's an industry. People who's working in security industry, they're gaining a lot of money. Selling, the latest device, the latest machine, the latest methods and whatever you just name, they make a lot of profit. People in government making a lot of money. They got promoted. Police officers got promoted. Those who the Minister of Defense, they will have a good justification to buy a lot of new weapons, a lot of new, intelligent devices, whatever, just because of this industry. They should thank the terrorists. NGOs are making a lot of money. They get a lot of grants from the government, from different parties, because of the terrorists. Analysts. Nowadays you would find an overnight analyst, those who never gone through any proper training or any proper, academic background dealing with the issue. I still remember a friend of mine, a young Canadian Jew, after attending a course with me on global terrorism, the very next day I saw his poster when I was in Durham, an expert in counterterrorism. Come on, I know this guy is only an undergrad coming from Canada. He did spend some summer holiday in Morocco to learn Arabic, but that doesn't make him an expert in counterterrorism. It's a lucrative industry to make money. Without the terrorists, a lot of people might not have the fortune. So we are talking about things that bring money to others. Does that also bring money to you guys? Okay. If you follow the narrative, the mainstream, and whatever given, crafted narrative, like the industry wants, then you make money out of it. If you're trying to go against it, you won't go far. I can assure you that. Terrorism is only a symptom. If you keep addressing the symptom without addressing the root cause, you're going nowhere. So, what are the root causes of terrorism? No, it depends. Again, to define terrorism is very, tiring. Different people have different definition and notion of terrorism. But I would say that if you look at the current situation, if you're saying that the ISIS group, the Al-Qaeda group, Boko Haram and the like, they are the terrorists, and we try to put aside all those controversial on the list like Gulen, like Muslim Brotherhood or whatever group you have, you put them aside and you try to focus only on ISIS, only on Al-Qaeda, only on Boko Haram, only on, the Southeast Asian ISIS in Marawi City. So we could understand that the root cause of all these terrorist phenomena in those countries, they could go back to 5 major root causes. Number 1 would be the injustice towards Muslim, the global injustice towards Muslim. There's a reality. The other day I was approached by a reporter asking me, what is going to happen next in Marawi City. I told them Rohingyan issue will further enhance the discourse of ISIS in Marawi City. It will justify the existence there. And the spillover effect has started to other places. By comparing, by showing the video of what's happening in Rohingya to the Rohingyans, and by showing that Asian leaders fail to do something, and Muslim leaders fail to do a lot of things to help them, the Rohingyans, is enough for those in Marawi City to feel that they are on the right path. They are doing the jobs that those leaders and those people failed to do. We are here as hope for Muslims. Okay, you try to address the youth, this is a feeling. I still remember initially I was thinking of showing a video taken from ISIS platform on Marawi City, but looking at the sensitivity of the video, so I prefer not to show it here. So then, nowadays we have a lot of very loose acts in Malaysia that people will be convicted even if they possess any material related to it. No, I don't know. Okay. And number 2 is conflicts. Conflicts in Muslim countries, conflict in non-Muslim countries, that involving Muslims. Terrorism, or this terrorist group or whatever, they're only the synthesis of any conflicts that happen. You take an example.
Al-Qaeda was born out of the Russian war on Afghanistan. The Al-Qaeda chapter in North Africa was born out of the conflict that happened in Algeria in 1990. The failed general election that's supposed to be won by the Front Islamic Salvation, FIS, and then the army took over, the coup d'etat, and that was the starting point of Al-Qaeda or terrorism in North Africa. ISIS, the current ISIS, is a synthesis of American invasion on Iraq in 2003. You're talking about ISIS in Mindanao. I mean, it's a synthesis of the failure of Muslims and Philippine government, Muslim in Mindanao, and Philippine government to strike a deal of a 800 years crisis. And a lot of others. You know, you can go to this book by Gilles Kipal. I mean, Gilles Kipal is not, he's not really objective, but we come to his analysis on the trail of jihadis. I think, he addresses very accurately on the root of terrorism. And also dictatorship in Muslim countries. If you look at the demography of those ISIS fighters or ISIS supporters in Iraq, in Syria, you find a lot of them coming from problematic Muslim countries that are ruled by the dictators. Huge number coming from Saudi Arabia. Huge number coming from Tunisia. Not the current Tunisia, but the Ben Ali's Tunisia. A lot of them coming from Jordan. Some of them coming from Urumqi, a part of China, and what's not. From Algeria, from Egypt. You have a huge number of them coming from Egypt. And if you read Gilles Kipel, he said that the current ISIS, the root of Al-Qaeda itself, the root of Al-Qaeda, Abu Ayman al-Zawahiri as the father or the ideologue of Al-Qaeda, he himself is an Egyptian. And he was the product of Nasserid's prisons. During the period of Jamal Abdel Nasser, he took a lot of Islamists, Muslim Brotherhood, other groups, they put inside the prison, they torture them. And the book that written by Yusuf Nada is a very useful book to understand the root of terrorism. I'm not saying that Muslim Brotherhood is the root of terrorism, but I'm saying the prison of Nassirs. There's a produced monster, there's a breeded monster. The very first terrorist group that emerged out of the prison of Nasser was the Islamic Jihad in Egypt and Jama'ah Islamiyah. Not the initial Jama'ah Islamiyah, but the later transformed Jama'ah Islamiyah. The initial Jama'ah Islamiyah was a campus organization of young Muslim like you guys, but later on it was hijacked by the jihadis. They turned it into a jihadi group. They were the one who created a lot of bombings in Egypt, in Aswan, in Syut, in Oksur, and a lot of parts of Egypt. And bad governance in Muslim country, number 4, the root cause. Muslim countries with bad governance will result towards the emergence of terrorist group. And number 5, number 5 is very important. The discrimination towards Muslims in majority non-Muslim countries, be it in Europe, mostly in countries like France, Belgium, Germany, and now in the United States of America, and also in Australia to some extent. Maybe the system does not discriminate them, but the community. This will push young people to go for terrorism and to join ISIS. But again, we must also address the elephant in the living room on our part. Amongst the root cause, I wouldn't say is a root cause, but the ideological factor, it comes later. This ideological factor becomes a hope for those people who feel that they've been failed by the current situation, by the global injustice towards Muslims, by the conflicts, by dictatorship, by bad governance, and etc. So they found their justification, they found their hope in what? In ideology, which is the exclusivity and ultra-conservative discourse of Islam. Or you could name it as the jihadi ideology, the Salafi jihadi ideology, the Wahhabi jihadi ideology, or whatever ideology you say, but they won't find people buying in if the root cause are not there. But unfortunately, nowadays you go to any Muslim countries, even you go to Western countries, they are addressing this ideological issue. Yes, of course, it's part of the problem. But again, it only emerged, it only become very useful after the root causes. Without all the root causes, this ideology won't be bought by the younger generation. Won't be bought by Muslims. Yeah, you would always find throughout the history, I mean, people was buying to this kind of ultra-conservative, exclusive, and extreme violence ideology, but they'll be on the fringe. It won't be that popular, and then they won't go far. I mean, to deny our history, it's rather foolish. If you look at the idea of terrorism, it emerged even during the period of Sayyidina Ali. Yeah.